This is WFYI News Now. It's November 20th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, Mike Pence opposes one of Donald Trump's newly announced cabinet picks. New efforts to balance elementary and middle school enrollment. And it's been 1 week since a jury found an Indiana man guilty of killing 2 teen girls in Delphi. But the high-profile case has plagued the community for nearly 8 years.
So everybody had a taste of this in some way and really affected by it. And it really was such a community nightmare.
Those stories coming up. But first, Indy Parks showed off a major upgrade for an East Side park this week. City and community leaders explored the new covered basketball courts at West Montgomery Park. More than $2 million in federal relief money was invested in the project. The pavilion includes 2 full-sized basketball courts and 2 half-sized courts. All the courts are covered under a large pavilion. David Lewis was one of the many community members at the recent event. He said he used to take his son to this park to play basketball, and he's excited to see this new investment.
It's nice to look at. I mean, the facilities that are available are a lot better than when I was playing ball here. I'm sure that the kids will really enjoy it.
The courts will be open to the public from dawn to dusk. The project is part of a larger investment the city has been able to make in parks in recent years, with federal relief funding, major grants, and other city appropriations. President-elect Donald Trump nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. last week to head the Department of Health and Human Services. The nomination has been complicated for health experts who say RFK Jr. gets some stuff right, while also promoting a number of medical conspiracies, including that vaccines cause autism. As WFYI's Ben Thorpe reports, opponents of the nomination were joined on Friday by an unlikely source, former Indiana governor and U.S. Vice President Mike Pence.
Pence's opposition to RFK Jr. had nothing to do with the nominee's stance on many health issues that have already been raised by detractors. Instead, Pence zeroed in on RFK Jr.'s position on abortion. In his statement, Pence urged Senate Republicans not to approve Trump's nominee, who he claimed would be the most pro-abortion Republican appointed Secretary of HHS in modern history. During his run for president this year, RFK Jr. affirmed his support for a woman's right to choose, supported codifying Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to medical abortion pills. Pence said the nomination should be deeply concerning to the millions of pro-life Americans who have supported the Republican Party for decades. RFK Jr., like many of Trump's nominees, could have a difficult path to his confirmation in the Senate. I'm Ben Thorpe.
Washington Township School District has introduced changes to the way the school boundaries are zoned. From WFYI's Education Desk, Sydney Dauphiné has more on the efforts to balance elementary and middle school enrollment.
The proposed rezoning is an effort to solve enrollment imbalances in the middle schools, maintain transportation efficiencies, and expand dual language immersion programming. The changes would take effect in the 2025-26 school year, and the district says it will impact less than 3% of Washington Township students. The attendance boundaries for Willow Lake and Greenbrier elementary schools will be revised. That will help reduce enrollment at Willow Lake, which is currently at capacity, while increasing enrollment at Greenbrier, which is below capacity. The school board will vote on the plan in December. I'm Sydney Dauphiné.
For more information on the proposed changes, visit our website at WFYI.org. And for our final story today, Richard Allen was found guilty of murdering 2 Indiana girls in the town of Delphi last week. I recently spoke with local reporter Dave Bangert, who covered the trial and has reported on this story for nearly 8 years, to learn about the impact it's had on the community. The deaths of Abigail Williams and Liberty German have long haunted the Delphi community. As someone who has lived and reported in the area for over 30 years, how have these deaths altered the community since 2017?
It really did consume that community for years. In the initial stages, almost everyone was either involved in the search for the girls when they first went missing, or they knew them. The town has 2,900 people. And so it really is pretty tightly knit. Everybody goes through the Delphi community schools for the most part. People all belong to the same churches. So everybody had a taste of this in some way and really affected by it. And it really was such a community nightmare for Delphi for years, and continues to be kind of a defining thing about the town. But it's the thing people remember about Delphi. So when they made an arrest 2 years ago, it was pretty seismic.
When that arrest happened, was the community split? I've seen there's a lot of people who believe Richard Allen did not commit the murders, and then there's a lot of people who believe that he did. Was the community split by him getting arrested?
I don't know that the community was so split. I think the community was very surprised because Richard Allen, who is 52 now, worked at the CVS store in Delphi. And if you know Delphi, really, it's a store that everybody goes to because there are only set number of businesses there. So people knew him by face, even if they didn't know him. But as far as the community kind of stayed out of the way of the trial as much as they could. We found a lot of people, didn't want to be interviewed. But what you really saw split was kind of this true crime community. You saw some real pro-prosecution sides that were determined to see that Richard Allen was convicted, and a lot of people who showed up who were convinced that he was the wrong man. That was the split I saw.
What do you believe are some of the factors that played into this case receiving national attention like that?
Well, first off, just the circumstances. So basically, 8th graders going missing, being killed. And then you just also had, the factor that they had somebody's voice to say, guys down the hill, and a photo and video of a suspect. There were a lot of factors that made this so compelling. And the fact that they didn't get somebody for 5.5 years really built on top of itself.
During the trial, what were some of the most shocking moments?
Well, there were some really brutal moments in that trial. How they found the girls' bodies. And then the crime scene photos themselves were, gruesome and just terrible. And the families being there to watch those autopsy photos, all those kinds of things you expect in a trial were really difficult. We also heard his confessions on audio from prison where he called his wife and his mom and literally said, "I killed Abby and Libby." So hearing those was a big deal.
Richard Allen was found guilty on all 4 counts of murder. Was that surprising to you as someone who's reported and seen all the details and seen all the evidence?
It was going to be shocking no matter what, because really people were invested, including the media, the town. That word spread in town immediately.
How do you think the town will move forward?
I think that they've done that. They continue to move forward. I think that they don't define themselves the same way that everyone from the outside defines them. That's been my impression.
Thank you for your time, Dave.
Sure.
Allen is scheduled to be sentenced on December 20th, and Bangert says Allen's counsel is expected to appeal. He could receive up to 130 years in prison. The death penalty is not on the table for Allen. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.